my studio. I want to talk a little bit about materials. If you're going to watch the videos and try and paint along, these are the materials that I shall be using. I don't use a lot of materials. I'm not very good for the marketing men. I don't advocate that you buy a whole lorry full of stuff. You only need a small amount of materials. You need your paper to paint on, you need your paints, and you need your brushes basically. Let's look at paper. Paper is the most important ingredient, I would say. You can't paint good watercolour on poor paper. I tend in the studio to use stretched boards. I stretch the paper on a board. I'll do a little video of how I stretch paper as well. There should be one on the site. Stretched paper doesn't cockle or move. To the papers, I use a variety of papers. This is Saunders Waterford, £140, which is the thickness and the weight of it, and it's rough. And I use this for outdoor work, etc. It's a good basic paper. My other favourite paper is Ash, which is a superb paper as well, one of the best. And I like £300 rough Ash. Other papers, this is a Wattman paper. They don't make it anymore, it's over 30 years old. It's a superb paper with a lovely surface too. This is a handmade paper, Two Rivers. That's a gorgeous paper as well. Very individual, but a nice heavy paper with a lovely surface. Here's the this is Saunders Waterford, and it's a cold press, which means it's slightly less rough than the rough. I never tend to use hot press. It's very smooth. That's all £140. The higher the poundage, the thicker the paper. The minimum I use is £140. Generally I stretch it when I can, but you can use it loose. When I go away painting, I use it loosely. Don't get cheap paper. Don't get cheap paper. You can't paint on it. It's just a false investment. With regard to paints, I tend to use very few paints. They're all artist quality. I believe it's students quality. You don't get the richness of hue, and because I don't use a lot of paint, you may as well spend the extra and get the quality. Now, there's about 12 colours in there. The mainstay of the colours that I use are the ultramarine, the cobalt blue, the burnt sienna and the raw sienna, and then there's the cadmium red and the lemon yellow. And they're sort of mainstay, I suppose. In any one painter, I'll use 3 or 4. I won't use all in the same painting. Cerulean. Then we have cadmium orange, Hooker's green. That is Naples yellow. And I do like violets. Ultramarine violet, cobalt violet. And down here, they're winter guests. I put them in for winter painting. It's the umbers, raw and burnt umber. With regards to the palette, you'll notice it's got wells for when we paint on dry paper, because we need puddles of colour. And it's got this tray, which a lot of people don't use. It's for wet in wet. When you paint wet in wet, you need drier paint, stiffer paint. Not bone dry, but stiffer. And this tray, the paint should stay on the tray. So this is for painting on dry paper. This is for painting on wet paper. You'll see it in the videos as it's used. I fill those up from tubes. I just squeeze the tubes in. It doesn't harm when it dries. You can re-wet it. I use Daler-Rowney paint mostly. I use Winsor & Newton as well, and Schminke and various other types. Over the years I found what suits. Artist quality, because as I've said, they're richer in pigment, and I don't have hundreds of tubes anyway, so I can use artist quality paint. To put the paint on, we've got brushes. I generally use mops to start. These are squirrel hair mops. They're very soft, hold a lot of water, and therefore you can put a lot of wash on very quickly. And then for the mainstay of the painting, I use these. These are round brushes. They're not sable, they're synthetic. I use synthetic ones because they keep their point, and it stops me changing brushes so often. I used to use Kulinski sable brushes. It's very expensive. Beautiful, beautiful brushes, hold a lot more water than these. but they lose their point if you mistreat them, and I mistreat them. So with these, I've got to dip them into the wash more often to keep them full. But they're lovely brushes, they work well. Towards the end of the painting, I might use some smaller rigger type brushes to put the details in. And I use occasionally, this is sword liner for things like rigging and winter trees, etc. And that's about it really, material wise. You've got to have a pot to hold some water, of course. And I use tissue for various things, drying the brush, cleaning the palette, etc. So the equipment you need is quite minimal. Let's take a look now at the way we set these materials up to paint. So here's the material set up for painting indoors. As you can see, the idea is it's ergonomic. Some people set up, they paint there, their water pot over there somewhere, you know, if they need paper it's over there, and you don't want to be bringing things across the painting. So I'm right-handed, so everything here is right-handed. The board sits on a little mini easel which can be adjusted for height, and it's about 30 degrees on average. Sometimes I'll have it steeper for certain effects, occasionally I'll lay the board flat, but generally we have the board at 30 degrees. This will be explained during the videos as well, is to make a bead form. Now, it means I can pick a brush, I can mix, I can get to everything, I can come straight to the paper. And this is simple, but it's surprising. Although it seems simple, it's surprising how people forget the simple setup that we have here. It's quite easy to end up with things all over the place. If I'm on site, everything's in my hand, and the water pot hangs from the easel. On some of the site painting videos on the site, you'll see that in process. So that's how they're set up. It's relatively simple. So there's a basic guide to materials and setup. Maybe for more in-depth information, there's the book available from myself at www.petercronin.org, and of course from Search Press and Amazon. Okay, thanks for listening. You best start painting.